Alexander Zverev versus Rafael Jodar, French Open quarterfinal review. Spoilers ahead in 3, 2, 1. It is the French Open of 2026, and Zverev finds himself in the semifinals. Sans Djokovic, sans Sinner, sans Alcaraz. I mentioned a lot of reasons for concern vis-a-vis Zverev's forehand and his general passivity, a little bit of a lack of urgency in his game style, the energy monitoring, and all of that I believe is absolutely valid. The applicability, I believe, would be even more so had there been a Djokovic, a Sinner, an Alcaraz in his way, which they are not. So in terms of his tactics, I believe I'm a little bit more sympathetic as to Zverev's clinging to his patterns in this match. The match ended in a straight sets victory for Zverev, 6-1. Well, that was the second set. 7-6 in the first, 6-1 in the second, and 6-3 in the third. In what was a rather straightforward victory for Zverev, and yet I believe he could have finished it off much sooner. But he has no reason to, honestly. That's what I got from it. Considering the field that is left, of course, Felix Auger-Aliassime and Berrettini have emerged as the, well, one expected, one unexpected leaders from that quarter. So I commend them, as I commend Fonseca and Menchik for their match, which I also caught up on. But in general, there is no real emergent threat to Zverev's chances, so his reliance on his patterns is understandable. Zverev's serve bailed him out again. He was behind 5-2, and there was a part of me that just was not ever believing that Jodar would win that game, and that is not a knock on Jodar. He has the game for it. I believe his movement can be far more efficient. His backhand is very natural, especially the backhand down the line. When he's hitting a forehand and his weight is pointed forward, Jodar has a very potent forehand as well. I believe there are some elements of his technique which do lend themselves to smoothness. I mean, that's just a complicated way of saying that he has some forehands that look very fluid, and yet there is something in his technique, especially in the lead up to it, where there seems to be a little bit too much shoulder involvement, meaning that he's leaning far too much forward or backward, which might be connected to the movement aspect that I also mentioned. It's not something that I can point to in one moment. There are several snapshots from his movement where I recall that he was in an awkward position and he relied a lot on his obvious agility and improvisational skills to bail himself out of. There were many mental moments, meaning mentally he did not choose the right shot, or he panicked a little bit, where he could have chosen a better shot as well. Some tennis IQ is building. He's in his first quarterfinal of a Grand Slam, so he has every reason to be proud of his performance. I do see some reasons for optimism regarding his chances in the future. For some strange reason, Jodar's serve looked slow, even though I checked the speed gun and the speeds were around 206, 203, so he's not slow by any means. It just looked that way, and maybe that could be because Zverev was using the entirety of the length of the Philippe Chatrier court, which is a massive court, so it might have been a contributing factor. Zverev is relying on his wingspan, he's relying on Jodar not being a bullet server, even though, as I mentioned, his serve is pretty snippy, pretty quick, so it can be deceptive sometimes, and Jodar caught Zverev napping, so to speak, a little bit once in a while when Zverev was slacking off a little bit, not expecting the serve to be quite so skiddy as well. Jodar can improve his serve, and yet he's not the tallest player out there, so he will have to rely a little bit more on variety, and he has the touch to back it up. In the second set, Jodar dropped his serve early on, and I do believe his confidence dipped at that moment, and yet there were glimpses of that game that allowed him to race to 5-2 in the first set. He can construct a lot of rallies. He also broke Zverev at some point in the match where he won that game on the back of a long rally where he constructed the point beautifully. So he has a good sense of the dimensions of the court. Zverev just did not panic. He knew his serve was the best shot on the court. His backhand was the second best shot on the court. And that is not to say that Jodar has any deficiency, so to speak of. His game is evolving. and I am very curious to see how the movement develops in the years to come. Today, Zverev had no reason to panic in the face of any of those elements, especially in the second set where I believe the inexperience and a little bit of nerves showcased themselves in Jodar's game, manifested in Jodar's game. In the third set as well, Zverev got the break and he raced to the finish line. The serve was clean, the smash was brilliant. The forehand is an element where I wanted to give some observation or make an observation, which was that in many cases Zverev is cleaning out that forehand, and it's more often when it's off the back leg and he's accelerating through the shot, pushing himself forward. When it comes to the forehand on the front foot, which would be the closed stance for a lot of people, he is tending to over-rotate sometimes, or he's not so confident. Maybe the arm is a bit too rigid and the wrist is not loose enough. The exact reason for misfire is different at different junctures. Zverev's movement is not extremely dynamic. I'm not sure whether he's trying to conserve energy. Sometimes it feels like he could be moving a lot more fluidly, and also that is something that is visible in his drop shots. It seems that he's always a little bit uncomfortable with that. Maybe it's because of the bounce, because he's not catching the ball early enough. It just seems that even in the moments where he's able to hit a drop shot successfully, meaning the opponent is not able to reach before the ball bounces twice in the forecourt, it is a result of Zverev's immaculate structure and point construction and not some amazing display of skill, which it is, and it just doesn't seem that way a lot of times because it is on the back of a very geometrically perfected point that he had executed. So it might be just something that is aesthetic and it just is not reflecting the real skill that Zverev clearly possesses. Just in the previous two matches, it has looked a little bit robotic. And yet, it would be enough to win this tournament, I believe, even though Felix Auger-Aliassime can pose some challenges to Zverev, and more sooner than that, Menchik might have something to say about that with his very potent forehand too. That said, the match was not something to write home about in terms of any suspense. It was pretty clear to me that Jodar might not be winning it, especially after the first set tiebreak ended in very quick fashion at 7-3. Jodar, to his credit, has amazing touch. Some of the backhand drop shots that he was able to produce, those were amazing, mesmerizing, I would say, too. So there is reason to believe that he might make something of a very impressive career in the times to come. That said, the serve will improve most likely. Zverev showed his tactical awareness. I hope it was a tactic and not just because he felt like he could dictate play better from the back of the court or he wanted to be defensive, that he stood so far back near the baseline. That reminded me of Sinner versus Medvedev from, I think, 2025, where Medvedev was just standing so far back, and that was something similar to what Zverev was doing today. I think I have a note about, the forehand needs more spice. That was my note regarding Zverev's forehand. It has it. I think he will not need it. He just does not have reason to test it. So that much I understand. I believe he will be able to risk it a little bit. I'll look forward to seeing it if that happens. I do not believe he's losing his semifinal, even though stranger things have happened. I look forward to it. I'll check it out in the times to come, and also some good tennis on the female draw recently. So some good matches, very good atmosphere. Sabalenka and Osaka had a very good match just yesterday. So this French Open, even without the star power on the men's side, featuring in the latter half of the tournament, aside from Zverev himself, of course, the second seed, is still a very interesting tournament, the French Open of this year. It remains to be seen what happens in the semifinals. I'll catch you again soon. Until then, this is Duncan Lievi.